Okay, let's continue our exploration of the analog. And this time we're going to talk about the envelopes or the amplifiers. So let's turn off oscillator 2. We're just going to talk about one amplifier right now. We just have the default saw wave. So we can turn it on and off here. If you turn it off and there's no one amp on, so there's not going to be any sound. Overall global panning of this envelope and the volume. Nice. Now if we click on this envelope next to the empty area, we can see all the controls of amp 1. So right here we have just a display of our envelope, and if we move it, we can also see the values right here change as well, so you can control them from wherever you want. It's the same. First, we can change the curves of the different stages, between the different stages, from linear to exponential. So that's just going to give us different sound. We can turn on Legato, which won't trigger the envelope with overlapping notes. So, for example, let's do a very long attack. And actually, let it build up. Nice. Now, if I bring another higher note, it's going to take its own time to start again from the beginning of the envelope and build up. But if I do legato, they're all going to continue from the same place as the first note. So that's legato. We have free, and free also known as trigger. It's just going to skip the sustain stage. So that's very useful. So even though sustain is all the way up, you just go and attack, decay, sustain, attack, decay, release. Very useful for percussive sounds. So let's trigger. Nice. Here we have velocity affect the attack. So let's bring it up all the way to 8. And then I'm going to hit it hard. And let's make it a plucky sound. I'm going to take the sustain down. And if I hit it softly, we can hear that it's now kind of have a short fade in, short attack. And let's take down this one. This is the velocity of the envelope. Basically, velocity sensitivity. How much velocity affect volume? Now it doesn't even matter. But we can hear the difference in attack. So that's a very cool feature. Velocity already routed to attack. You can increase the amount here. And that's velocity to the volume, to the overall envelope amplitude. Excellent. Here's the attack stage. Decay and sustain. Right? And we're not going to talk about the essentials of synthesis, of course. We probably did it in class, in our certification program. Sustain. And here we even have another sustain time. So as you can see, we have another stage. And that means that unlike most conventional envelopes, sustain will sustain forever as long as you hold the note. Here we can actually have the sustain going down. And the shorter it is, the faster the fade. I can even, of course, play with the decay. So we have an extra stage here. That's too long. We have an extra stage to shape our volume envelope, volume shape. So here's the release. Let's bring this back up. Okay, and here we have the loop section. And if we go to ADR, so only the attack and decay are repeating. Attack, decay, release are repeating. So now also the release stage added to the repeating, to the looping. Or attack, this is not actually looping, attack, decay, sustain. And they're not looping, but the only thing that's looping is the attack and release when every time you hold a note and release a note. Just the attack and release, which is very cool. So it adds kind of like note off triggering, which is awesome. So that's the looping. Right here we have pan modulation. We don't have any LFO. It's disabled right now because the LFO is turned off. We'll talk about it in a different video. Here we have key tracking. So it's going to follow the keyboard and it's going to pan it according to the height. You can also reverse it. Kind of more mimicking how it would sound when you sit next to a piano, right? If you go higher, the notes are on the right, and it's sounding more from your right ear, and also same as the opposite. So that's key tracking for the pan. And you can also add an envelope. And right now, this envelope, let's turn off the... So now it's kind of moving from left to right. So this envelope is also gonna affect the pan. Here we have level modulation. LFO again is disabled. Key tracking. So we can have, as we go right, it's louder. Go lower, it's quieter. We can also invert it. And this is just by default 100%. You cannot change that. The volume envelope needs to control the volume. So I'm not really sure why we have this here, honestly, because you can't even change that. But that is the volume envelope. The amp 1 and amp 2 is exactly the same, just with its own controls. And next video, we'll check out the filters.